Welcome to Scholar IAS Current Affairs classes, students. We have come up with some of the important articles of the day. Let's see one by one. The first article is on reservation, that is horizontal and vertical quotas. This is related to your GS2 governance paper and also social justice section. So basically, first let's try to understand what is vertical and horizontal reservations. So if reservation is given for a particular caste, let's say scheduled caste or scheduled tribes or OBC, so these kind of reservations given to these kind of communities is called as vertical reservation. Okay, because in this a particular group is provided with reservation under the law, so that's how it happens. But in case of horizontal reservation, an equal opportunity is provided to other categories of beneficiaries other than this group, whatever we call it as, like say SC, ST and OBCs. Other than this group, there are certain other beneficiaries like women, veterans, transgender community and people with disability. So when these kind of groups, these kind of people are given reservation in the existing vertical category itself, then such an reservation is called as horizontal reservation. So understanding what horizontal and vertical reservation is important before we proceed any further on this article. So vertical reservation is the reservation that we give for a particular group in the society, while horizontal reservation is providing reservation to beneficiaries within that vertical groups, within those groups that have been covered under vertical reservation. Okay, so now let's try to understand how both categories of reservations, that is both horizontal and vertical reservations, are applied together. So the horizontal quota is basically applied separately to each vertical category, as I mentioned before. So you would have come across these examples. I mean, in our personal life itself, you would have come across such instances where even if you are applying for UPSC, you would have come across different types of reservation that have been provided within the number of seats that they are going to fill. The UPSC is going to fill. They would have separately given the number of groups that they would be covering. At the same time, they would be providing how many seats are reserved for physically challenged and those kind of categories. So this is how it is happening. And for example here, if women have 50% horizontal quota, if that's the case, then half of the selected students will have to be necessarily women in each vertical quota. So within SC, there has to be, if let's say 100 seats have been allocated for SC category, then those people who are filling in that category, out of that 150 seats has to be women, has to be filled by women. The same applies for ST, OBC and even unreserved. So half of all selected SC candidates will have to be women and half of unreserved have to be women. So that's how it proceeds. And this horizontal reservation, though it makes it look easy, but it brings issue on ways of identifying certain groups, because though it is easy to say with how to apply it, but how do you identify those groups? If you identify the group, applying such horizontal reservation is easy, but identifying such groups is a difficult task. While you can say that reservation is needed for transgender community, there are many other communities on various other parameters who would be deprived of certain things in a society. So how are we going to identify it? As of now, we identify only few communities like veterans, women, transgender community, PWD. But there are many other groups, many other beneficiaries who needs to be identified first of all. So that's the challenge associated with horizontal reservation. Now let's see some of the observations made by Supreme Court related to this horizontal vertical reservation system. So in Saurav Yadav case, Supreme Court observed that a person belonging to this intersection of vertical and horizontal, let's say if you are a woman or a transgender coming from an OBC or SC or ST community, so you are coming from two types of categories. You basically are eligible for both vertical and horizontal category, right? So if a person is belonging to this particular intersection of both reservations, and still if the person has scored high or is eligible to be even qualified without coming under reservation category, then the court observed that that particular person should not be counted within this vertical reservation. He should be left out of this vertical reservation. That's what the Supreme Court says. And so the person cannot be excluded from the horizontal quota in the general category. So what happens? You are removing, let's say if it is OBC women, and you would be given the quota, you would be enjoying the horizontal quota that is reserved for women in general category, not within OBC, if you have the required qualification to be falling under general category. So that's how the Supreme Court wants it to function. And the reason why Supreme Court came up with such a criteria or such an procedure is that when you bring more students or more applicants or aspirants into this site into general category, it shows that there are more meritorious candidates applying for a job or a college or whatever. Because if you increase the number of candidates in reservation category, it shows that the meritorious students are less in general category. So that's why they shift it. Those who are qualified enough to get to the reservation under horizontal, just enjoy only the reservation, horizontal reservation under general category, would be shifted to that instead of enjoying both vertical and horizontal altogether. So that is the rationale behind Supreme Court's observation. So this is all about horizontal and vertical quota reservation. Students, this article is very peculiar article because we have seen, like if you are observed 2 to 3 weeks back, there was a article on reservation. It was dealing with how reservation is affecting the whole functioning of the effectiveness of the governance. So if you are able to relate these things together, and if you are able to keep a track of articles on reservations and these type of topics, you would get a holistic idea about the issue of the topic of reservation itself. So make a note of all these things and try to use it in your mains exam appropriately. So the next article is on Shakti Bill. Though this particular bill is related to Maharashtra state, the provisions that this bill deals with has national level significance, and that's why we are covering this article, and it also has exam relevance. So basically this Shakti Bill was recently approved by the Maharashtra cabinet, and it tries to enlarge the scope of harsher and mandatory sentences for rape. So that's what this bill is trying to do, and it also allows the decision makers to presume consent from the conduct and circumstances surrounding rape incidents. Okay, while this particular bill is trying to come hard on rape issues, we have to look at it, critically analyze the provisions of this bill to understand how it has a negative impact as well. What are the challenges associated with harsher and mandatory sentences? The first one is this harder sentences would have an impact on the rate of conviction, first of all, because in India the rate of conviction in rape cases is already low, and when this harsher sentences are brought in, it would have a negative impact on this aspect. And also this standard of presuming consent that has been mentioned here, what happens is this, if decision maker is allowed to consider whether a consent was given by the victim or not, there is a possibility of a notion created about an ideal rape victim. So the decision makers are allowed to say who ideal rape victim can be and who cannot be a rape victim. So this is basically prejudice in nature. And also already rape survivors are facing issues in reporting the crime. In such a scenario, bringing in such sort of consent related standards would pose a risk for the victims actually. So what needs to be done is to ensure that the rate of conviction is also high. At the same time, all the victims are able to report their issues. A reformation at the stage of reporting, investigation and victim support mechanisms, all these things has to be changed. These kind of reforms are needed. First, the reporting should be made easy for the victims to happen instead of making them to go through a difficult process altogether. Also, these harsher punishments are going to reduce the rate of conviction only for this offense, because a study even found that the rape judgments, a study was done on the rape judgments in Delhi. It showed that there was a lower rate of conviction following the removal of judicial discretion provision in 2013. So when harsher penalties are brought in, the same is expected to happen. And introducing harsher punishments, they do not remove the systematic prejudices that are already in the minds of judges or anyone who is taking up the case, or let it be the investigation officer. There is a systematic prejudice that creeps in into the minds of investigators as well as judges. So what needs to be done is, this harsher punishments are no way going to help those things out. So we need to take care of certain other aspects. So the first one is, a standard of affirmative consent should be included. So anyone who is involved, whoever the victim is and whoever the offender is, an affirmative consent should be included in the provisions of the bill. And there is a need to reform the process of trials as well, because the existing process, from starting from reporting to the stage of delivery of judgment, there is a misogyny and stereotyping that is involved. It not only affects the women, also the offender. So any victim or any offender with this, when they face the media as well as the society or the judges, there is a preconceived notion that this is how it happens, this is how this is what an ideal victim has to be, this is what an ideal offender will be. Those kind of predetermined judgments are there. So these has to be removed from the whole trial process so as to ensure fair judgment. And tackling crimes against women and children requires social reforms. See, no matter what, how much of reform that you undertake in judicial process or police reforms related to how much you sensitize police towards such incidents, at social level, society level, there needs to be certain changes. A society that is actually non-judgmental towards victims or offenders. So this particular reform has to happen at social level. And also, there has to be efforts from the government and as well as at the investigative agencies to ensure that reporting and the whole process of investigation is not tampered or is not prejudicial, so that the punishment, just instead of enhancing the punishment, if these measures are, if these reforms are taken care of, and then the rate of conviction would increase. At the same time, protection for women would also be better. So this is all for today's class. For more articles on current affairs, visit our platform Skholar.com, and more videos, subscribe to our channel, and happy learning. See you in the next class. Bye bye.